Good evening. This is the January 8th meeting of the Portsmouth Energy Advisory Committee. And I'll just take the roll. Tracy Cameron.
Here.
Councilman Cook.
Here.
Herb Lloyd.
Present.
Tom Rooney.
Here.
Kevin Charette.
Yep.
We don't have Ben D'Antonio. We don't have Peter Somsich. And from staff, we have Jillian from planning and Stephanie Secord. We had some minutes distributed to all of you. Everyone have a chance to look at those? Motion to approve. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. First meeting of the new year. I thought I sent an email, but I'll go through it briefly for the record. Some of the work we did last year. We had Betsy Blaisdell put together our residential solar information night, which was really informative, I thought. And Tracy, thank you for the button-up seminar at Community Campus. We all saw the infrared pictures of heat escaping from your house.
Bad
Lots-
today.
Yeah, like today. And Herb Lloyd spearheaded our effort to run our sewer plants with renewable energy. And that's underway. We'll get a little update on that. Peter Somsich, a solar panel net metering customer, has been dogged in his pursuit of how he can get net metering with community power, and has found that solar panels prior to 2017 can do net metering with Portsmouth Community Power. So
Great letter in the newspaper.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
making everybody aware, and apparently he got some response from Nashua and around the state. We've dug into a solar array on Jones Avenue, which could be used to, with a power purchase agreement, reduce the city's energy costs and substantially reduce our carbon emissions for the municipality. That received a council vote. And we had a great info session with David Sharples from Exeter on how they proceeded, and learned a lot from that. And I'll just give you a few updaters on that. And Tracy, early in the year, did a lot of research for us on the Recovery Act, Inflation Reduction Act grants for transportation and building efficiency. And there's always more work to be done finding those grants.
Also, I might suggest Mr. Rooney's work with CPC&H as well.
And yeah, absolutely. Tom stepped in to replace you, Kevin, as our representative to the coalition. And has been our communication channel, which has been great. Speaking of the coalition, new rates are out. And Stephanie's done a press release for us. You want to brief us on that?
So you have a printed copy of late breaking news, because we've been, Councilor Tabor has been talking to Madeline at CPC&H to try to define exactly what the Eversource rates are. MUR had reported that they were at 8.9. The CPC&H press release from last week said that Eversource for us was, CPC&H was slightly lower than that published rate. And what we found out at the end of the day is, and there's language, I think where I left off in this draft said that the rates were equivalent, and actually the Eversource rate is 8.029 and the coalition rate is 8.0. So that 0.29 cents per kilowatt hour works out based on thumbnail from my own Eversource bill in Newfields, because I unfortunately don't live in Portsmouth, came out to $67 a year. It's $5.50 something cents per month. So it's something, but it's, as the press release from CPCNH said, slightly lower. So I think I'll put the slightly back in, but otherwise, most of the coalition press release was, of course, the coalition's perspective, big picture for New Hampshire. And Councillor Tabor suggested that we take some of the information that they provided in the separate document about the annual report, talking about how much Portsmouth residents have actually saved, put that in this press release, remind people of the Seacoast Energy Challenge, and that as the media are not likely to pick up two stories from us, that it made sense to consolidate it into one. And then we could put the annual report version on our page on the website. So I apologize for not getting either to you sooner, but if you have any comments either tonight or subsequent to this meeting, just let me know.
So the headlines are Portsmouth Community Power is cheaper than Eversource by 0.3 of a penny.
I wasn't following the numbers you were saying, so you have 8.9 here, so what is Eversource's?
8.9 is the CPCNH
Correct.
and 8.029 is the Eversource rate for Portsmouth. For
I think it's.
Well, that would be a lot lower.
That'd be a lot lower, that'd be a penny lower.
sorry, it's point
8.29, isn't it?
929 maybe?
8.029. What did I say?
Gotta be 92.
8.929.
0.029 is
Yeah.
the difference.
Got it, okay, so
Right, that's the
8.9,
difference.
9.900
0.9
versus 0.929
okay, got it, yeah.
for the win.
For the win. We could get a percentage for that, right?
So that last sentence in the second paragraph is still to be developed.
It will now reflect that it's that coalition, the Portsmouth Community Power rate is slightly lower.
Right.
than
Okay, yeah, for the comma.
Eversource default.
Yep.
Okay.
But the other rates for the options are quoted directly from the coalition.
And I think we wanted to call out the fact that so far we've saved Portsmouth customers 2.9 million. And that we have 236 people who've opted up to the green options. And we also put in the release about the contest.
Also, excuse me, Tom, do you know why the summary of the savings is only through September? They coalition must monitor it constantly. Or at least through the period. I didn't understand why it was only September.
You know, all I could think of is they put together that little written summary for every town so that they did that. It took them a little while to do that, and that was when they pulled the data from.
What's their fiscal calendar? Because I work for the government and our year ends at the end of September.
That's the end of the year.
So I was curious if their
That might,
fiscal calendar.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think they'd stick with the utility. Do you know what if Eversource and the utilities are?
I don't know.
over to
No. I mean,
calendar year?
calendar year, I would think for quarterly earnings and all that.
So this is something that the CPCNH put together? This annual report?
Yes. Well, they gave us a shell.
Okay.
And Stephanie applied some editorial license. But it's, it's a good summary of where we are to date.
The key thing that I edited was there were several shifts back and forth using our this, our that, and it sometimes wasn't clear whether the coalition was talking about the coalition or about Portsmouth. And just as a general rule for formatting anything that goes on the website, we don't say our. So that was the biggest change. And then adding, again, the paragraph about the energy challenge. So if this is an annual report kind of thing. And what's the other thing we added?
But who our representatives are.
Right.
Yeah. So we can put this on the
So that
city
annual
website.
report is designed for the website, and the press release refers to that, and I'll put in the link to the page on the website.
I forgot to mention the Seacoast Green Challenge with the other towns. We're hanging in there. We're like, it's just a smidgen behind Newmarket. In terms of total numbers, we're of course much bigger. But we don't know what the year end. Or
We should be getting the December
be getting-
numbers by the end of this week, based on precedent.
so we'll know pretty soon, and that wraps it up.
That's through December, and then we've still got through January to.
Oh, right, right.
Oh, right.
We were gonna line it up with the rate periods.
And then I was wondering if there was discussion when we started about what the winner gets, bragging rights, or do we want some little, I don't know what, and that we could keep the challenge going for the next rate period and move our little trophy or whatever it is from town to town, if we wanted to keep encouraging people to opt up. I don't know if there was discussion about what the winner would get.
Oh, we talked about trophies. We talked about green frogs. I don't think there was nobody came down on anything definite, but maybe a trophy
It would be fun to keep it going if the
Yeah.
other towns are willing.
if we win. Picture with the mayor. Press release.
Good idea. I like it. It's a good idea.
Golden windmill or something like that.
Oh, golden window.
Lump
I
of
like
coal.
that.
Turbine. Turbine blade.
It might even spin. Okay, now that's a good idea.
Yeah, maybe you have to send your mayor or select board chair to the others meeting, to a council meeting or a select board meeting to talk about how amazing they are. as a
Yeah,
community.
right.
I think-
That's right, how they beat us.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you would like, I can investigate some suggestions for our next meeting. since
Sure.
we still have time.
That'd be great. I think it's made us look at how to tell the story about the green options and we've learned a lot from that. It's hard to move large numbers of people. But, we have, we've boosted it measurably. Just good.
Tom, can I just ask you a question on the rates? Yeah, I don't know if you had any insight, but given that the delta between the lowest utility and CPCH is so tiny, it gives me the impression that CPCH struggled a bit to beat the Eversource this time, which is the lowest. It's buried, from
Right, and
utility
the
to
others are
utility.
lower.
Usually there's been a little bit more of a just a half cent or so, and I've just given it such a tiny delta that gives the impression that their portfolio struggled to beat it by more.
Yeah, and they may have I forwarded what I got. I I read kind of the cover email. There was more detail
Yeah.
provided. I haven't read through
Okay.
that. They may be getting, the utilities may be getting better potentially. I mean, it's all timing, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's timing with the utilities, not as much with CPC.
right.
But one of the towns, Boscawen, I think it was, did a graph showing how since the start of the coalition, all three utilities supply rates have gone down, have been inching down. The gap's been closing.
So
So
it's just a coincidence,
it's competition.
but yeah.
Well, and it launched at that height where rates went through the roof, where they're like 20 cents, remember, for a little bit. So I think that was also kind of just timing that
Yeah,
they happened to launch.
There was something that I read in the paper about Eversource having a credit that they were able to apply to reduce their rate.
Yeah,
Was that in this cycle?
I know last time that happened. And it made it more difficult for CPC&H because Eversource had a one-time credit there were always some credits, but it was particularly large.
Yeah.
I think it was the last rate period,
Okay.
which made it a little more difficult for CPC&H. So this time around, I don't know if they had anything similar, but
they bought more energy than they used and got a big credit. I don't know. This news was fresh to us as of yesterday. So
mhm.
I
well, it's
don't-
still, it's good that it's still the lowest. That's good.
Well, the other utilities are lower
Unitil.
than
Yeah.
8.9.
Eversource was the higher one.
Yes, you're the highest of all.
So in the other utility franchises, CPCH is not at the low.
Correct.
Oh,
Unitil and, well, the New Hampshire co-ops,
Fox
they're
usually
tough.
the lowest.
They're tough
Yeah,
to
'Cause
compete.
they have a portfolio model like CPC&H.
The CPCNH, are they concerned that they might have customers that flip back and forth?
Well, that could happen in
That could happen.
Unitil and
Yeah.
Liberty's territory this time around. if it was-
Exactly. Sorry, not Eversource, but
Substantial.
yeah,
Always do that.
yeah.
That'll be I didn't realize that's then the first time since we went live. That any of the utilities
Yeah.
are lower than CPCNH.
Right.
This is just a question for people who know a lot more about the utility business than I do, which is very little. So I wasn't here in December. I was at an energy conference in DC, and the thing I'm hearing like in the last 9 months is data centers, is they are gonna draw so much power there's gonna be so much demand. I would have to think that anything that's kind of locally sourced is gonna be more resilient and more competitive, but I don't know, like, so maybe it's not looking great now, but 3 years from now, as that data center full expands, is that something you would expect or not?
So being on the technology side, you see a lot of data centers being built out in oil fields. Because they're using the gas to drive turbines to power those oil fields. And then there are a number of companies that are working on small nuclear reactors. There's the one in Wyoming that hasn't gone online yet. And Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and a bunch of these tech guys are working on projects for small nuclear reactors to power. So I don't know, I would think down in Texas too, where you have all this solar capacity. You know, there's and wind, and that's another prime place to put data centers.
Ben would tell you if he was here, and he mentioned at our last meeting, when I was talking to him offline, that even Eversource's forecast here in the Northeast, that there's a huge gap brewing between the demand for electricity and what the generation forecasts are. You combine both, you know, baseline and renewables.
Yep.
And I was just reading an article today, I think yesterday in the journal about, you know, the AI demand for, you know, with the data centers, as you mentioned, that they're not comfortable at all that it's going to come from renewable sources, that there's going to have to be, to your point, you know, more in the way of small nuclear and you know, clean traditional energy sources to meet the AI demand that it wasn't gonna be, you know, the forecasts weren't comfortable that it was a renewable solution. But Ben was just saying that Eversource's forecast going out, both in terms of the grid and the need for generation is, there's a gap.
So do you think the community power model, I guess is kind of where I'm curious, is going to be more resilient, more competitive? Or it's not really going to be? That's not gonna be a factor. There are kind of these outside pressures that we have some community local sources, is that?
I mean, there might be pressure on price, but I think the CPCNHs, they're gonna be in the market just like the utilities. The utilities aren't generating, they're buying in the market just like CPCNHs. I mean, Eversource doesn't have any generation. Liberty, Unitil, they don't generate anymore. So, you know, maybe you'll have price spikes, but I think CPCNH's model in terms of their portfolio model and constantly in the market buying, whereas the utilities aren't. They're subject to what the markets are and in those windows that they go out to bid twice a year. So I don't know. My novice perspective, I think it's still going to be a resilient model going forward.
Heat pumps, all right, isn't that a big changer for the
Yeah.
electric companies? Because, you know, now where are you getting all this additional power? With these heat pumps
And your car.
and you're in your car too, which, you know, now it brings up Jones Ave again, because you know, is that the model that we need to be moving towards, is trying to generate electricity within towns or small regions, and not trying to rely on, you know, buying power from, say, you know, Quebec Hydro or places, you know.
Well, I think, like Kevin said, we're gonna need it all.
Yeah.
We're gonna need to do all of that plus solar, like on the roof, community solar. Right.
To be more insulated from this move, which is going to increase the need,
Right.
the more we can do to self-generate, better off we are.
The more resilient we are.
Yeah.
And the national forecast was 2% growth a year. But I think that's being revised with data centers and electrification, and that could creep up to 3-4% a year. And you know, that's 20% in 5 years.
No, I would expect a curve it's not, you know, 2 to 4%. We'll see that exponential curve in growth there of need.
Right.
You know,
I mean, coupled with investment in the grid too. Which is going to put pressure on price on the distribution transmission side. Yeah, you know, beyond supply. So it'll be interesting.
It's gonna be interesting. I still have a lot. Go ahead.
Central Maine Power that was experimenting with wireless delivery. Isn't there something, or,
Of electricity?
yeah. Did I hear something about that?
It's a new one on me.
Yeah, okay.
that's interesting. Kind of like your iPhone.
Yeah,
From charging.
well, I don't know if we need any more kind of stuff going through the airwaves.
Yeah, that's wild. I do feel pretty confident, Kevin, you know this in more detail, that the portfolio buying approach long-term should have a competitive advantage.
I mean, there could be blips, just like apparently there is right now with Unitil and Liberty, you know, in a given rate period, CPCNH is, you know, I'm sure if they could have beat Unitil and Liberty, they would, you know, but it was probably putting too much pressure on their financials in terms of.
Yeah. And just to go back to the events of the past year, and thanks everybody for everything that everybody did. And Tom, thanks for stepping up and being our representative along with Peter Branson. It's important to have a voice. But Stephanie put down here some of the council actions. November 18th, we got the motion passed to explore feasibility of Jones Ave. And then these other two are more from sustainability. We can't claim credit, we can't claim we're the fathers of and mothers of these, but
Oh, I'll claim credit for one of
yeah,
them.
right.
Put that shuttle loop back into the CIP.
That was great.
It was moving out of the CIP and I got some calls from people on sustainability that were concerned about that. Why was it supported and then did it not make it?
Right.
So,
I plead ignorance. What is that all about?
um,
That shuttle loop micro transit study?
the goal is to get a grant to do a study on whether or not a shuttle loop around the city
Mhm.
would be beneficial, whether we'd have enough ridership.
Okay.
For it to cost out, or if we have another investment option, say if hotels invest or businesses invest in a shuttle loop because it improves parking for
Mhm.
their employees. So
Okay.
the idea is to look at it and say, hey, would a microtransit loop benefit us? Like you see in I think Charleston has a really great one.
Mhm.
Savannah.
Savannah has a good one. Yeah.
Kind of like a hop on, hop off type thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the great thing about that is that you can have parking, say at like the Market Basket out on Market Street Extension, well, I guess it's Woodbury there.
Yeah.
You know, and people could park there at the end of the lot during the day and take a transit loop and not park downtown if
Oh,
there were
yeah.
downtown workers. So, and then you could pick up all the people that live in that corridor too, you know, so I think that's ultimately the goal, to reduce the number of cars going downtown. Because now there's discussion about needing a new parking garage eventually, but if you haven't explored this as an option, do you really need I mean, the question is, do you really?
Before you spend $30 million on a parking garage, could you fund?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it was one of those, it came through, Counselor Tabor's committee first, and they recommended that it go into the CIP, and then it just didn't. It didn't make it. It was late coming in, and I think that they weren't ready yet, and it requires unfortunately, our poor planning department to jump through some hoops.
Yes. our
This
planning
year.
department That's stretched
I know.
like taffy.
Is there
Um,
thought on a fuel source for the buses, like electric or
That's open.
gas,
To
natural gas?
open for consideration. The biggest challenge we've had at the city with that though, has been that we just don't have we haven't developed that capacity for the city yet. So that's the challenge like DPW has in adding electric fleet, is we don't have the charging capacity. And we don't have the, I guess it's not really grid capacity. We don't have even the equipment or the ability to add the equipment yet in certain places in the city. So that makes it more challenging.
The shuttle loop is, if you had transportation corridors like Islington or Middle Street, you could have greater density there, which addresses housing. So this came up in the housing committee. From sustainability point of view, it reduces our carbon footprint from attractiveness as a tourist destination. If you can park your car once and then take a shuttle into a hotel,
Or you think.
so it's economic
360
development.
units are going out where the Christmas tree shop is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge complex that's going in there.
Now, if you think about a loop that goes around the Lafayette corridor as well, where all those new apartment complexes have gone in to downtown.
And if Service Credit Union puts 300 or 400 units down there, 100, I guess they're looking at more than 100, but less than 170 or something like that.
I'd ride on it in retirement, just talk to people.
So that's and Bill Lyons who does transportation work all over the country, has really been a strong advocate for this.
Yeah.
And he wants to see it happen.
I haven't done any of the legwork. Bill Lyons has done a lot of the legwork
He's,
on
yeah,
this.
and he can talk to people in government really well. And then the solar overlay district, working with Soul Smart, that came up Jillian, was that through sustainability?
The planning department's been working on that. Got the bronze designation
Nice.
recently. But I think that this is going to planning board this month or next month. They're gonna be looking at, additional zoning amendments for solar. And then, once they do that, we'd be somewhat close to the silver designation, so we'll continue to work towards higher designations.
Right.
What's the is that with the solar?
With Soul Smart,
Oh, okay.
it's a federally funded program. We're provided free technical assistance to sort of look at our zoning, look at our best management practices that we could institute in the community in order to encourage solar. So we're working on that with that program.
Thanks.
So, you know, regardless of the swirling national trends, we're continuing to make progress, move down the road on green energy and resilience. Switching to projects currently underway. After this council vote on Jones Ave, Peter Britz and Peter Rice and the city manager and I had a meeting, and I think Peter Rice feels we really need to understand the regulatory aspect of this first. He's going to get some help from one of our engineering firms, so that he knows what's involved. Then they're going to have a discussion with DES. And we also took a little walk on a cold December day, just to see what it's like up there. It's a beautiful site. And Rice just turned to me and said, this is perfect for solar, you know, southern exposure, no trees, no shade. Sitting there as a lazy asset that we don't have any use. So that's underway. Staff knows its policy direction. They're working away at it. They're back soon. And then Herb, you checked in with
Enroll, I got an update from Enroll today. They're still working through their technical assessment and that should be completed the end of February. And by the end of March, they're expecting to be completely wrapped up and done. And they've asked for, and I know you responded, they've asked for a touch base call over the next week. So just waiting for everybody to give me which days and times they can attend, and then I'll get that scheduled. Right. It's just a check-in. They want to check in with us and make sure that they're still going to deliver what we're expecting.
well, I thought it was a pretty tightly designed scope of work that you guys came up with.
Yeah.
There's been a nice fringe benefit to that. We discovered in the Zoom calls that NREL has some technology for destroying PFAS in sewer sludge. Some very leading edge stuff. Whether anything will come out of that or not, I don't know, but it was an interesting discussion. Which we wouldn't have otherwise learned about. Because we're all gonna have to figure out what to do with PFAS.
Problem.
So you never know. If you open discussions with a great research lab, you never know where.
At least for now, they've got funding.
Yeah.
Through March, is that right? Continuing.
Yes.
Through March.
We'll see what happens. So that's kind of the state of what's happening right now. And then we'll finish up the Green Energy Challenge. Have that for our February meeting. I sent around in the email some of the grant successes that some other towns have had. You know, Little Rye has managed to get a Eversource grant for battery backup power at the town's designated emergency center, which seems like a smart idea. And a couple of towns have small solar grants for rooftop solar for municipal. And there was a round of those. Those are state DES grants. So I think I would submit to us that might be a fruitful area to work on.
For 2025.
Doesn't, Clean Energy New Hampshire is looking to have a workshop on how to do those. So,
How to find the grants,
and how to apply for them,
apply for them.
because they helped some of these smaller towns
Okay.
do their.
When are they looking to do that?
Sometime in the next 30 days.
You know when the deadline is at all for those grants?
You know, I was digging around on the state website and I couldn't dig it out. And I was pulling my hair out thinking of all the things I learned about website design back in the media days.
I get an email every week. I don't know if anybody else has signed up, but the New Hampshire Department of Energy.
Yeah, every Friday.
Yeah, every Friday.
Yeah.
And, you know, we should pay more attention because they do list in there upcoming opportunities for different types of
Mhm.
grants, so. That's probably a good place if
Yeah.
that's something we're interested in pursuing 2025.
I spent a little bit of time today digging through that, because they said we hired a marketing team to put it together, a new website. But a lot of the opportunities, like one's expired in like 2011, another opportunity, I couldn't see anything that was current. It was lacking.
I think that the newsletter, though, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's where they kind of disseminating anything that's new. current.
Although I run into this, it's really long. A couple of weeks I didn't open it. I opened it maybe last Friday or the Friday before, but it was like 7 pages, which
Yeah.
I don't know if they're really all current. Seemed
Yeah.
like a lot.
Yeah. Okay, well, there's another option there maybe, is to get a POC at the state that could kind of help us. One of each of these, yeah, kind of, you know, what is current and what is not current and how do we
Get a POC.
yeah, a point of contact.
Oh, point. of
Yeah,
contact.
yeah.
Where did we end up with? Is the energy efficiency of our municipal buildings? Weren't we starting to poke around with that with Peter Rice last year?
Well, we had those, that consulting company come in and
Yeah, I think I missed that, yeah.
Yep.
Are we doing anything further? Is there any to-dos there or?
they're contracted.
Yeah.
They're. What they've promised the city is that they will find savings that will more than pay for their analysis.
Okay, so that there's nothing more than can get involved with on that.
Opportunities. I think the way that staff wants to do it is to have this outside assessment.
And that was mostly or entirely this building?
Yeah, this building is a challenge.
Yeah.
That's a real challenge. The short story is it has one pipe system that goes from heat in the winter, the cooling in the summer. And the pipe chases were never really built for cooling, so there's condensation problems. Really inefficient. Cetera.
Some people put their windows open in the winter because their room's too hot, and others,
That all applies to the police building as well.
it's all the same.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Windows all need to be replaced.
some of the police building is from the 1920s. So,
That, this segment, this thing, where it starts, the newer section at the end of this hallway.
you know, a lot's been done on the elementary schools, I think. And upgrades there for energy efficiency.
You know, it's the same company.
Yes.
Yep.
This is the 500-pound gorilla, this building.
Well, I had mentioned to Peter Briggs when this was brought up that I think the Spinnaker Point facility needs to be looked at too. Because that is pretty inefficient as a building too. I know we don't own it, we lease it. We own all the repairs and needed maintenance for the next 8 years, I believe. And I think it needs a look from somebody from the outside to see what we can do with that, because we're paying the bills. Yeah, and we're trying to reduce both our bills and our greenhouse gas emissions, so it needs to be part of that too, even though we don't own it. I mean, people on that track in the wintertime, when they go walking out there, mainly seniors, they're wearing winter coats. And in the summer, they're sweating because it's too hot. It doesn't make much sense. And there are all kinds of technologies nowadays that are not that complicated. For example, even just a infrared reflecting coating, reflective coating on the windows in the track, which are standard nowadays. That could help somewhat. I don't know, but someone needs to look at it who is expert at this stuff, because there's some gains to be made there.
Yeah, and I think there was 3 terms ago,
Mhm.
there were a lot of questions. If we bought the community campus, what was the future of Spinnaker?
Right,
Would there ever be
right.
a health club type
Right.
facility in the
Yep,
community
yep.
campus? And we could get out of a leased facility and have something we own.
Something that's more modern and efficient.
Right.
Mm. But the rec committee did its evaluation of the rec needs of Portsmouth and said we need to have 2 aquatic centers. We only have 1 that we own, and Spinnaker would be a second one. So unless we're ready to build another aquatic pool somewhere, which I haven't heard anybody suggest that, we have one in the form
I
of
think
Spinnaker
that's
Point.
Way out there with the. hockey
Yeah,
rink.
yeah, but this is for seniors. It's really critical. I mean, this is a real health issue for a lot of seniors that can't or have mobility issues. They can swim, they can walk the track, and it's been designated as the premier senior facility for over 18-year-olds. We don't have anything comparable unless you want to build it.
The challenge is so much around aquatic centers is energy cost. They're just-
Yeah, of
they're-
course.
They're hogs.
You lose money on them, no matter what you do. You can't, all the YMCA's that have pools.
Yep.
You lose $250,000-$300,000 a year just on maintenance and cost of operations. And so it has to be, it's one of those challenges. You have to find ways to pay for it, which we've done so far as a city. We've done a pretty good job finding ways to cover costs.
Well, let's,
The indoor pool is not that far from break even.
Not too far.
let's remember what happened. I was a trustee of SIP at the time.
Yeah.
And SIP took over that facility and invested, I don't know, $250,000 in it from outside sources, raised the rates. And the first thing we did with that pool is we plugged all the holes in the pool the water bill was incredible. And the second thing was updating all the mechanical pumps and systems that were old already. And many of those efficiency measures, I mean, now it's okay to reveal the secrets, that we basically ended up, the city was paying us every year a certain amount. And we were gaining so much in efficiency dollars that we were able to do a lot more, because every time we made an efficiency improvement, we reduced the cost, but we kept getting the same amount of payment every year from the city. And that's why we could replace the roof and other things. So efficiency can work for you in that way. And so I think, that is a lesson. And I think, what's his name? James Peterson, I think, who is mainly involved with that. So.
He knows that.
He knows that
That's his
stuff.
business.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm getting at is too, that the swimming, the aquatic issue is a real big deal for seniors. And like I said, there's no replacement right now. So why don't we make this thing as efficient as possible? For the next 8 years, we're going to be paying those utilities and those water bills, whatever it is. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Okay.
I'd like to see an energy efficiency audit done of that, or the company that's involved, get involved with that as well. And I think Peter said he would look into that next last time.
Good to, you know, put that out there.
Betsy Blaisdell and I had a good Zoom conversation with the buildings manager over in Lebanon. And he told the story of how over 7 or 8 years he generated millions in efficiency savings, same way as you did with the pool. It just takes focus and dedication. Now they had a dedicated position for that. Which is something that the committee could kick around. At a position that would pay for itself.
Well, there is that propensity to think that once we've done the most serious efficiency measures, there's nothing left. But usually what happens is a lot of things get hidden that you don't see until you get rid of one layer of inefficiency, then you see the others. So it kind of works its way down. And at the same time, lucky for us, the technology is getting cheaper and more efficient, which is a good trend.
Absolutely.
So.
But I'll open it up to everybody to think a little bit about what we can undertake this year. I think we've got some good things in the works. Make sure that we're a productive committee for the city and we bring things to the council. So
I love that idea. Is that in our purview to suggest things?
why not?
Because if
I
you put
mean-
together, there must be, do we know what all the utility bills put together are?
We could ask.
Hmm.
You could easily, you take a 5% of that. That's like, let's see.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're, predicting costs are gonna go up, it's only gonna be
Right.
more valuable as time goes on.
Right. I think if it's true, as we're all looking at our crystal ball and saying electrons are going to become more and more valuable, it's scarce, struggling to meet demand. Do we produce our own megawatts and find our own negawatts?
I think one thing put more of a spotlight on is kind of in that energy efficiency space, maybe through the Portsmouth newsletter. Just thinking when we had the Tracer, when we had the individual over at the campus talk about the energy audits, if residents qualified for the energy audits, it's a great deal, to have the audit done and to get very low interest, to get funding, low interest loans for work on their homes and so forth. I just don't think the majority of the residents in the city are aware of what's available. As a committee, we have an opportunity to put a bit more of a spotlight regularly through the newsletter, et cetera, in terms of what New Hampshire Save offers and what's available to the community, and kind of just maybe lock arms a little bit more with New Hampshire Saves on a monthly basis to kind of help co-promote, things that they're offering and talking about, to make sure our residents are aware of it. You used to get it in your bill. Most folks get electronic, statements nowadays. They're not seeing
You don't
those
see
those
that.
bill
That's
inserts.
right.
you've
Yeah.
got for 50 years. So I think we maybe have an opportunity, because energy efficiency, I think, is the easiest way, obviously, to save, and it's the most available to the majority of the residents in the city. And a lot of residents would qualify for energy audits. you know, given their bills and their size of their homes and et cetera. But it's just, I think as a committee, maybe we could help promote more on that front.
Right.
And they reached out to ask if we want to do one. We tentatively are signed up for 2025. So I did want to throw that out and see if there's interest in another button-up workshop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Keep repeating.
I think people would be really surprised by how little things make a difference.
Mm,
I have 2 wooden storm doors right now that are being repaired for my house. So I have regular doors, but I don't have storms on just 2 doors. My house is noticeably colder. And that's just 2 storm doors.
mm.
Love it. And they're not even great. I mean, they're
Yeah.
antique wooden storm doors. So,
Yeah.
but it's amazing how that one extra layer, that little buffer, few
Yep.
inches there.
Yeah.
And so, it's so much about education.
Yeah. But we probably have thousands of residents in the town that qualify for an energy audit and just don't know about it, aren't taking advantage of, it, don't know what the benefits of following through on the recommendations are and how they could be funded, so forth. But I think it's a way of hitting a lot of people.
One of the side benefits of comprehensive insulation, especially in the basement, is a reduction in mice. Because mice tend to come in, I mean, and it's not my theory, I heard this from the experts. You know, all the piping, all the infrastructure in the house comes from the basement often, from the furnaces, from the water heater, all the pipes. And many of those pipes, they always have space in between the pipe and whatever is around it. And those are the pathways for these mice to interact through the whole house from 4-1 to 4-3 or whatever. And so just by shutting off those pathways, you could have a dramatic impact on your mice population, besides other ways of getting rid of them. So,
But Kevin, you raise an interesting point. If we could stimulate, if we could stimulate a lot of uptake on those energy audits, which don't cost anybody.
Right.
You know, how much could that, and what kind of wave of efficiency out there in our older houses could we do?
Yeah. I mean, we have a way of, you know, we could be promoting energy audits in our water bills. Different things we
Yeah, I think we still mail water bills to everybody. Never.
and we do it monthly. We do it monthly too, which isn't necessary, really.
But it's a great channel.
Yeah, it is a channel. It's a communications channel. Yeah. Well,
But even we had like an energy efficiency corner in the newsletter, you know, at least
Yeah,
once a
yeah.
month,
Tip
That-
of the month.
that it maybe had links to New Hampshire Saves and you know, maybe some tips in a given month.
And levering in the Green Energy Challenge.
Yeah.
remind
Mhm.
people that will send them their
And I would imagine New Hampshire Saves would work with us too on kind of co-marketing some of this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be good to keep in touch with them on it for debate, you know, find out where the programs are going, because they do go up and down.
Yeah. And even some of the things are more focused on small commercial.
Right.
Kevin and Tom, just a question to you because of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. Is there some way for them to offer some amount of funding for like a pilot project for insulation? I mean, the low level stuff that we could do. And maybe where towns can say, okay, we're gonna offer 20 households an opportunity to increase their insulation or through an audit and then also some kind of implementation with some type of subsidy that comes from the Community Power Coalition.
I mean, it sounds like that's getting into using the reserves that I don't think.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. But I'm talking about a small amount of the reserves. We're not talking a significant amount. I mean, you know, insulation is probably the cheapest thing you can do. So we're not talking installing solar panels or something.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I heard about one town that was looking at adding 0.5 cent to the rate or 1 cent to the rate,
Up there. Mhm,
which is a provision that we have in the joint powers. Agreement.
mhm.
We can
mhm.
set our own rate.
Yeah, and at, what are we at? 129 million kilowatt hours so far? So
Yeah.
that time, 129 million times half.
Hmm,
And they were gonna use it for home efficiency.
oh, mhm,
So
Mhm.
evolving.
yeah,
That's tricky politically, though. You know, you've got to convince the community that it's worth everybody paying more.
mhm.
It's fun.
Well, if people thought that that initially it would be a pilot and later on everybody could benefit from it, and it's kind of a testing out of the concept, then maybe people say, okay, you know, if this is something I can make use of in the future, maybe I'll be willing to pay a little extra. You know,
Something that I've been working on for 2 years now, with the city is, an effort to try to get a building fund in place so that people who wanted to make upgrades to their homes that were more energy efficient upgrades, instead of, replacing your oil furnace, putting in heat pump,
heat pump, yeah.
for example, but who couldn't afford it could apply for a grant for the differential. The biggest challenge that we've had is implementation. We used to have a fund like this at the city level that benefited homeowners. But making sure we had reputable contractors that weren't gonna overcharge fees and the city wasn't paying contractors that were gonna come in and do a bad job or reimbursing people who did a bad job.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest challenge is, so how do you screen that and know that you're actually reimbursing for reasonable work? And that it's really the going rate and not too much. So that's the kind of thing that we've been discussing for a while. But one of the things that I'd like to see is a reduction in permitting costs if you're doing energy efficient upgrades. So maybe you're paying the fee just for the review, but you're not paying for the cost associated, with the cost of the application, because right now it's based upon how much your project costs. So if you could deduct the cost of, say, insulation or those energy efficiencies
Right.
from the permitting cost, I think that would be
Yeah.
nice to see, but we have to be really careful of it because that's, that pays for. its benefits. So you don't, there's a balance there, what you could or could not cover, so.
You could also have lower permitting costs if you used heat pumps and if you didn't use natural gas or oil in a new home. My daughter's on an energy committee in the town she lives in, and they're looking at doing it.
If we, oh, go ahead.
You go ahead, I'll follow you.
If we were able to get an energy manager, would an energy manager be able to oversee that kind of program?
Oh, what I was thinking, you may have looked at this, if you can piggyback on someone else's certification, like the utilities. They don't do a lot of HVAC, so you could start there, but a lot of times, since they're providing incentives and rebates, they make the contractors jump through some hoops, maybe not a ton, but if you can find other entities that are doing some sort of certification qualification, then it just takes it off the city's plate, because if you're
Yeah.
the body certifying, that's a lot of.
Yeah.
Right, and if it was just a set amount of money, like those rebates are, instead of the cost differential,
Yeah,
probably be easier to manage, I think. That's the challenge. What I'm concerned about is like people who can't afford to do the upgrade and getting them to do it. So how much would it cost to get them to do the differential versus just replacing their boiler? And so I don't know. I mean, I know that the difference on what it cost me to replace an oil burner with a high efficiency furnace. And it's pretty
Right,
significant.
it
difference.
is, and it's so different from house, especially with older houses.
Yeah, yeah.
I think even just the calculator, because the seminar that you ran, Tracy, New Hampshire Saves has the calculator to put your data into it to see if you qualify for an energy audit.
Yep.
Most residents don't have any idea that even exists, the opportunity exists, but if we had a link in our newsletter, that little blurb and a link to that calculator, I think you'd have a lot of folks saying, let me check that out,
Yeah.
and I didn't qualify. We keep our thermostat too low, I think. I didn't qualify, but, I think it would be, you get a lot of uptake with residents just checking out to see if their residence qualifies for an energy audit. If you
Yeah.
kind of just led them to it, here it is, here's the little online tool that you use, you put put your square footage of your home, your energy bill, a few other pieces of data, and it comes back and tells you if you qualify for an energy audit. And then there's all these benefits that if you do.
Well, if we had a case of somebody in town who'd done it and did a little video, to the name, and they tell.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's how much I'm saving every month in dollars and cents.
mhm.
And brought, make a video brought to you by the Energy Committee of Portsmouth.
Check
and-
out if you qualify. And I think you'd have lots of
Mhm.
folks going online just to be curious to see if they do.
on social media, on the Facebook.
To follow up on what Councilor Crook mentioned about certification, I wonder if the coalition could be involved in certifying vendors. I mean, now they're a really big entity, that have a big impact statewide. And it would seem to me that a company would want to be labeled a good vendor by them or everyone else, instead of each town trying to do their own certification of how good a vendor is, without the same clout that we would have as a town versus the whole coalition. Because I think, it seems to me vendors would be interested in getting certified as a qualified vendor, if the coalition agreed to some kind of criteria.
Doesn't New Hampshire Saves have a list of qualified contractors? Seem to remember.
I think they do, yeah.
And they go through some hoops to be on that list.
Well, that would be a good starting point even for the coalition,
One of the challenges I had doing that, so I did it, I qualified, I was inefficient enough. And
You're in the business.
Inefficient is, all right.
well, that's a problem, like.
Yeah,
I can
every-
take care of it. but I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
So then they came and they gave me all kinds of recommendations, and the first time, I did it twice, first time around. You have to use their contractor and it's all or nothing. And I wanted to pick and choose because I really didn't think I
Right.
needed the back room
Right.
insulated. And they said, sorry. So then a few years later, I was like, well, maybe I should do it again. Then the next time I was like, oh, fine, do it all. But that wasn't, you don't have you use their contractor or nothing.
Right, right.
It's a little,
Yeah.
I mean, it worked out fine.
Draconian.
The contractor was good. But it's different. It's not an open network. It's not like they're saying use one of these 10.
Oh, okay.
It was, there was
Mhm.
for Portsmouth, might have been just the one, but they were the ones that came and did the audit, and they were the ones that were gonna come back.
Mhm.
And if I didn't want them. then
Yeah, yeah.
that's
I
fine.
think they're vetted though, because.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah, they
know,
were good.
they're-
Yeah, yeah.
And even if they say, here are all the things you should do to your home, if you decide you don't want to do it, at least.
You have the.
you know what you
yeah,
should
it
do to
was
your home.
worthwhile.
And
when I
So
finally did
it's-
it,
yeah,
it wasn't so much dollars, but I had pipes that were that would freeze on really cold nights that
Yeah.
don't anymore.
yeah.
So they're like, especially in old houses, there's quirky things that I would have never known.
Yeah.
And they figured it out and.
Yeah.
And was well worth it.
I discovered, I was involved with the South Church, replacing all the lights in the sanctuary. Like, I think 50 incandescents with LEDs.
Mhm.
And we first had an audit and they came in to assess, okay, 50 LED bulbs of this type and so forth, and what it would cost, and they gave us a quote. And then I said, okay, we want to do it. But the quote included the labor of screwing out the old bulb and screwing in the new bulb. And we said, we can do that. We don't need a contractor to come in and unscrew a light bulb and screw in a new bulb. But we did qualify for buying replacement bulbs and they were totally compensated through New Hampshire Saves.
Mhm.
But the labor cost of replacing one bulb probably was about 50% of the cost of the bulb, which was unnecessary in this case. I mean, we had lights that were way up there, you needed scaffolding or ladders, but these were bulbs you could actually access, from the ground. And so, those kind of costs don't necessarily have to be absorbed by the resident if doesn't seem like it's necessary, you know?
Well, and there's a bunch of giveaway. I mean, it was nice. They'll also, depending on how many sockets you have that can take LEDs, they'll give you up to, I think at the time it was 8 or so, but I was good there. Weren't very many. I think I got one that I didn't already have one, but there was a few, or,
I just know the utilities used to really rely on the bill inserts to promote all that kind of stuff. but
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist anymore. Just everything's electronic and people don't realize what's available and I think as a committee can maybe help be a conduit to connect residents more with what's available.
Don't forget the water bills.
No more notes.
Yeah, yeah,
Mail of the snail.
yeah,
I had the
yeah.
guy at Home Depot give me an application, a city of Portsmouth application for a new toilet.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
I was looking for a gasket or something. He's like, you need a new one? I'm like, I don't know. Well, if you get a new one, and he had it right in his apron.
mhm. Yeah, great,
That's good.
great.
Good.
Okay, so, we've got ideas around promoting energy efficiency in homes and channels to do that. We've got, the idea of an energy manager and which really starts with the question of what's the total dollars and cents of our energy consumption?
Mhm.
Natural gas, oil, electricity, as a city, what that figure rolls up to. We can have that for February, maybe. And we've talked about getting some researching grants for rooftop solar and things like that, some of these state grants. If anybody has an interest in digging around for that would be terrific.
Yeah, I can spend some time digging around.
Great, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Before January 20th.
Yeah.
Hurry up.
Well, I think there's
Yeah.
there seems to be some belief that you can wave a wand and everything changes.
Yes.
It's not,
Yep. Takes a while.
federal government doesn't work that way.
No.
God.
Yes.
What else did we have on our? In your minutes there? Oh,
In addition to the communications, we're partnering with New Hampshire Saves. or
Right.
Whatever that.
Yeah.
It's both about
Yeah.
that workshop and.
oh, we talked about, giving people who are getting building permits an advantage,
Mhm.
time or cost if they go energy efficiency. I think is a good lever.
Yep.
Know that, what the chief building inspector and I discussed was giving you last year's fees instead of this year's fees. You had the fees change each year. Generally, kind of giving you prior year's fee. But we could also look at, maybe deducting the cost of, say, the installation.
Is our building code, is that is it sort of current with best standards or?
It was better than the state, but then the state last year passed a rule, the state house, that we had to all have the same building code.
Which is an older.
Which is-
Yes, the older code.
Right,
So it's
so,
now state.
and some of the extra safety things we had to be removed.
Oh,
We had it dumbed down.
Mm.
But it is uniform.
Really sorry I asked.
We have a very, a great chief building inspector who's excited about energy efficiency projects. So that's good, know that. So
Yeah.
the department's really excited about it. We have to find creative ways to make that happen.
Mhm.
In lieu of a energy leader at this point? Who's point nowadays for that type of work? Is it someone within Peter Rice's jurisdiction?
Or city buildings?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's generally Peter's.
Or Peter Britz or
Peter Rice.
involved in that too.
Well, Joe Almeida too
Oh, Joe Almeida, yeah.
is responsible for building.
So when you talk about an energy person, manager, whatever, you're talking broader than just municipal efforts. You're talking kind of citywide, outside of municipal activity.
Well, that's a discussion to have. I think you want to look, positions are highly valuable in the city's budget.
I think to make the case, it would be focus, earn their keep, essentially provide their salary at least within city. But then, yeah, I think if when somebody's there and they're doing that, expanding.
You know, is it something that Joe would be trained to do in addition to his duties? Clearly, I think we'll start with the dollars and sell a figure. Any other thoughts? I would expect that we'll have, you know, some feasibility results back at some point in the year on Jones Ave, and we'll have some deliberation on that of what we want to recommend. And also what funding sources we might be able to find for that. And, there's a number of different ways you can work with solar developers to do that. That's all a deliberation we'd want to have once we get more information.
Is Peter working with any sort of schedule though on his end? What he's saying he's gonna
You
do?
know, I made the mistake of not putting a timeline to it. But
Maybe first quarter or something. so-
I'll check in, see, I'll check in with Karen and see. They see. Moving up. There's no shortage of developers who would like to do it. So. Any other thoughts? Thanks, Herb, for doing a little digging.
Yeah.
Nice, we'll wrap up.
Since I was late, I just wanted to ask, have you guys seen the thing in the Herald I put in there?
Yes, we talked about it.
And in fact, I got already 2 phone calls, one from Nashua, because this went statewide. Got in the Manchester Union Leader, it got in Concord, whatever. And I got a call from somebody in Nashua, and I got a call from somebody in Portsmouth who wanted to know how they could make use of this. So in both cases, they were not quite aware that they could do this. And I think I mentioned it to Tom by email. One of them, the guy from Nashua, he actually sent an email to the coalition saying, okay, I'd like to qualify. I know, I think I'm qualified and I have solar and I'd like to switch over to community power. And he was told, no, he can't do it because you have solar. And then I told him, no, because I called the phone number then, and I talked to the people there. They said, oh yeah, you can do it. So I told them, okay, call the phone number. They know all about this and they'll take care of you. So apparently there's a mismatch there so far with the
You
communications.
see Henry wrote.
No,
back
not
today.
yet. No, okay.
Yeah, there's a new position starting next month that is gonna focus on some of taking care of those inconsistencies, but he did send a little blurb on.
And the guy here in Portsmouth, he had actually 7 meters. He had some other properties. And the one that was associated with the solar installation, that's the one that didn't get switched over. The others did get switched over to community power. So now he knows that he can switch everything over.
Right?
Yeah, nice work.
Yeah.
You were very persistent. And spend
Exactly.
money. That's next.
Exactly.
Are we off?